Hello there, everyone. I'm Gaylen Morse, and welcome to Journey to Recovery. Thanks for joining us. Our podcast today is Building Stress Management Skills. On today's program, we'll talk with Dr. Hal Baumchen about the common stressors in life, and we'll present 12 strategies to help you manage stress better. Thanks for being with us today. The Journey to Recovery podcast focuses on the co-occurring disorders of mental health and substance abuse. We present a wide range of thought-provoking, hopeful, and positive topics from a clinical yet practical perspective. Our host is Dr. Hal Baumchen, a licensed clinical psychologist and licensed alcohol and drug counselor. He's the author of several books on co-occurring disorders and is also a clinician with over 30 years of counseling experience. I'm here today with Tim Bode, Operations Director at Northland Counseling Services, and with Dr. Hal Baumchen, our host at Journey to Recovery. Hello there. Is everyone feeling relaxed today?
Yeah, pretty good.
Pretty good, Gaylen. How about you?
Yeah, I think so. Feeling good.
We're here in Minnesota. We have we're hosting the Super Bowl. We're not in it. I don't need to tell the two of you that, but
That's right.
we're not in it, but we are hosting, and so our town is buzzing with activity, and we have literally thousands, I think even hundreds of thousands of people coming into the city, and really an amazing thing. But I'm sure there'll be all kinds of stressors involved with that: financial stress, traffic stress, the stress of it's single-digit temperatures in Minnesota. We're all used to that, but some people aren't.
Right. On our last podcast, we named some of the many things that people get anxious and stressed about, although we did not talk about the Vikings, and we could have.
Yes.
So I thought it might be helpful today on this podcast to go over a few of them again, just to remind people.
One that we didn't talk about that I wanted to bring up was living with noise. And if you've had a friend that lives under airport noise and you go over to his house and you're standing outside having a beverage and the airplane goes over and everybody stops talking and you say to your buddy, "Man, that's loud. How can you stand that?" And he says, "Oh, you get used to that." And it's true, you get used to it, meaning you don't notice it as intently. However, doing the research, I understand that people get more illnesses, they miss more days of work, and they die earlier when they live under airport noise, all the while saying, "Oh, you get used to it." A lot of stressors are like that. Oh, you get used to it. But it does have an effect on you, all the while saying like, "Oh, it doesn't bother me."
Wow.
Yeah.
I even worked with somebody who said, "How can you stand those saws? Those are so loud." "Oh, you get used to it." No, you go deaf. You're not hearing it anymore.
You know, that's something that I can relate to. When we first bought this house, we're on a hilltop. And when it was first built, there were very few trees. And about 3-4 weeks into living here, I said to myself, I don't know if I can handle this. That wind is so loud, and it blows all the time. And I'm sure nothing compared to someone that lives on the ocean.
Yep.
But it was still incredible from someone who had lived only in city-type things to come out and hear that noise every day, every night, on and on. But I got used to it.
Okay. Are you screened a little more, or you got used to it?
I think it is we have way more trees, and I don't think we have more houses to the west of us, so I don't think we get it as much.
Some of the things we talked about last week included stressors like traffic, weather in Minnesota.
Driving in snowy conditions and icy conditions.
Yep. Financial problems, relationship issues, work-related issues, finding a job, keeping your job, stress on the job.
Sometimes, all of those job things, looking for a job. Sometimes I'll hear that neighbors are hard to live with. I have good neighbors, so I don't really think about it, but boy, I do hear about that. That can just make coming home stressful. Your home ought to be a sanctuary. It ought to be a peaceful place. Now you're coming home to somebody who you have to worry that they're going to see you come home or something that's terrible. So all kinds of stressors. How about making decisions? Is that stressful for anybody?
Yes.
Well, should I do this? Should I do that? Should I do it now? Should I do it later? Should I spend this money, that money, his money, her money? Yeah, I'm sure it's stressful.
Especially when you're a perfectionist.
Okay, yeah, trying to get something perfect is difficult, which we talked about procrastination. You'd like to put that off if you could.
Right.
Health problems, aging parents, things like that.
Yeah, we mentioned that on the last podcast. That's very stressful to try to make decisions. I remember telling my mother as she was getting older, like, hey, Mom, maybe you should stop driving. And she said, I've never had an accident. And I'm like, well, why don't you quit now? So you can say that instead of waiting until you had an accident and hurt some little girl on her bike or something. And that's a terrible way to end your driving career.
Right. Yep.
But all of those are difficult, making a decision like that and helping somebody as they grow older and making those decisions. Well, it's really tough, stressful.
Right. And then we also talked about kind of global or larger concerns that are stressful too.
Right.
So.
You mentioned North Korea, and we talked about the Cuban Missile Crisis in the 1960s that John F. Kennedy faced. Those things, the Kennedy thing doesn't plague us now, but those world crises and economic conditions, social conditions, they bother us somewhat, and it's a stressful time, stressful place to live.
Mm-hmm. So let's talk a little bit about some sources of stress.
And then trying to evaluate the source of stress. And it's important for us to do that so that you can understand where the stress is coming from and what you can do about it. You can ask yourself some important questions.
Like, is it something that I can control, or is it out of my hands?
Probably not surprising, Gaylen. If I can control it, I feel better about it. It's not so stressful. What's really stressful is if I just have no control over the thing. A client of mine many, many years ago, her husband flew to Texas. On the way home, he got killed in a plane crash. My client wanted to make it her fault because it was tough for her. It wasn't her fault. He just died in an airplane crash. But she didn't want to live in a world where something like that could just sort of happen. And what if my daughter got killed? I mean, so if I made it my fault, I could work harder to control it. We don't want to live in a world where we can't control things. So when you're looking at your stressors, how much control or influence do you have, or how little do you have?
Something I find stressful is looking for lost stuff.
Yeah,
yes.
We're all relating to that, Gaylen. Thanks for bringing that up. People lose stuff and look on an average 15 minutes a day. It takes 2.5 years out of your life looking for lost stuff.
Wow.
2.5 years out of your life.
Yeah.
Wow.
Looking for lost stuff.
That's stressful.
I want those back. Yeah. And I think some of us are bringing up the average,
Yeah, right.
We're not lowering it.
Yes, yeah, I'm on the other side of that, yes.
If it seems out of your hands or out of your control, it may be better to learn to live with the stressful situation using certain methods that we're going to talk about, such as seeking social support or changing the way you think about problems or distracting yourself or finding other ways to express your emotions, because trying to control what you can't actually makes you more stressed out. Feeling out of control just can really agitate you.
Okay, so let's talk about that a bit. How would seeking social support help?
You mentioned changing the way you think about the problem. Can you say more about that as well?
Yeah, so two things here. Got two files open. So one of them, Tim, I do think that when somebody goes through a traumatic experience, if they have good social support, people saying like, God, I can't believe that happened to you, and I feel so bad, and we're going to do what we can. We're going to get you a lot of help. That person feels supported. The traumatic experience is not such a big deal. It's not as big a deal as if, shut up, you don't have anything to cry about, or I'll give you something to cry about, or that wasn't a problem, or you have no right to feel like that, or that's no big deal, or don't you know what I went through? That kind of thing makes things worse. So when you have good social support, it helps you manage stress. And then, Gaylen, you brought up changing the way you think about the problem, and just trying to relate those two, like, hey, I got good people around me. I can get through this. I can call on good folks for some help when I need it. I do have strengths. I have abilities. I have gifts. All of that, changing the way I think, can help me survive stressful moments as well.
Let's talk about some do's and don'ts with stress management.
Here's a don't. Our population of co-occurring disorder folks often reach for alcohol and drugs. So the big don't is don't reach for alcohol and drugs, because it will give you a quick fix and some instant relief, but in the long run, it'll add to your stress level.
You know, we do try to cover co-occurring disorder topics on this podcast, so I'm sure this can be a pretty common go-to for some of our listeners.
Yep, and when they get stressed, they grab for it, and then like we mentioned on our last podcast, that has consequences to it. So now you've got another DUI, and somebody, a loved one, is mad at you, and you lost another job, and it costs you more money. And all of those things sort of add. You thought you were stressed before, then you drank, and now you're even more stressed out. So, yeah, we really want to caution people, don't go toward that. Don't grab for that.
How about exercise? Is that something we can do?
Yeah, exercise reduces that stress level. It can help your self-esteem. It produces endorphins, which act like the body's own antidepressant medication, so to speak. So it can be a really good thing just to de-stress by using exercise. And I think it's very distracting, so you're not thinking about what's stressing you out when you're doing your workout or playing racquetball.
We're talking about 12 strategies for stress management. And the third one that we're going to talk about is stop the rumination trap. So in other words, overthinking problems in your life and allowing them to take over your thoughts can make the problem seem even more overwhelming than it actually is.
So if you find yourself obsessing about a problem, how do I turn that off? You know, that obsessive thinking, and I go over and over and over things. And we want to turn that off. But it is difficult to, stop thinking that. So it's easier to start thinking about something else. So get a distracting activity, a hobby that you enjoy. And some of the hobbies that you have and that I have, I know enough about you, and I know how I work, that I can have a project going that I'm not doing at the moment, but I'm thinking about doing it. And even that creative thing and planning thing, even that can be helpful. You're not going on vacation, but in the next few days, but you're planning for it, and that can feel creative. It can be a nice distraction for people.
Mm-hmm.
How about trying walking meditation? I've heard this is an excellent way to combine the benefits of meditation with a change of scenery, fresh air, a little bit of exercise.
Right. It involves walking and maybe doing some deep breathing at the same time and focusing on something, maybe what's going by as you're walking, and you're concentrating on something else. Can be very soothing, very relaxing. You walk, take a few breaths, walk again. So you're combining those two things. But it can be a very helpful, a good way to relax, good way to reduce your stress.
Mm-hmm. Strategy number 5 is to evoke the relaxation response.
This is something that I can do when you even mention it. I'm thinking about how I'm going to do this, and I have a lot of tension, muscle tension in my shoulders, neck, and my back. And just kind of thinking about it, I can relax and calm down and ease some of that tension out of those muscles. And I can do it quite quickly. So you can train yourself to relax and evoke that relaxation response. Slow your breathing, slow your heart rate, relax your muscles. Or you could probably, wherever you are now, you could work yourself up into a real fussball. You could things don't work for me. I'm not able to do this. It's too hard for me. I can't stand it anymore. This is too tough. I'm not making any progress. That will get you more anxious and more stressed, or you can evoke that relaxation response. So train yourself to do that. And there's some good help online. You can just put that in Google and find a bunch of things, meditations and exercises that are going to help.
Mm-hmm.
Can you learn to bounce back quickly from hard times?
Yeah.
Instead of staying there, get yourself out of it?
Great question. I'll bet you and I could name people that don't bounce very well. They seem to, hit the pavement hard and stay down. Mm-hmm. And we could also name people who seem like, wow, that guy has been through a lot. He seems resilient. He bounced back. He's seems pretty happy, pretty optimistic about the future. And I think we can train ourselves to evoke that relaxation response we just talked about. You can also train yourself to bounce back. I like saying that about myself. It's not that I haven't hit the pavement, it's that I bounce pretty well. Mm-hmm. And the Bible says, the righteous man falls 7 times and rises again. Get up, try it again, do it now. Get up, try it again. So I think we can learn that.
Would you say that most clients you see in the co-occurring disorders program have at least when they enter the program kind of that hope for improving themselves and being resilient? Yeah.
Right, and but they want to be encouraged along the way, and we can encourage them. And things like sleeping better and eating healthier and staying in counseling and sharing some of the difficulties and getting encouragement from others, all of those things allow them to try again, to get hope, and to bounce back.
Number 7 is to look at the bright side.
In every situation, there's a skill or a lesson that can be learned. And can I find the silver lining in every dark cloud? And there are some positives that I'm going to be able to come away with. By looking for the silver lining, no matter how small it is, you can at least find some meaning to the setbacks and those difficulties in life. Mm-hmm. I learned something from it, everything that I've gone through. And I like thinking that when all of these problems create for me a foundation, or they kind of create the root system so that the plant can grow taller, or I can build higher on the foundation. And that foundation was the difficult things, and the building is, in fact, the positive things in life. But I can build higher because of the difficult things I've been through.
Yeah, I sometimes say to the kids that I'm directing in my one act, everything that happens to you is an opportunity to build character.
Right. I heard this funny cartoon, Tim. This is off track, but it's funny, so I'm going to say it. This old man comes into his house, and he's got his leg all bandaged up. And his wife said, "What happened?" And the old man says, "You know how the parking lot in the grocery store is kind of slanted, and I took the grocery cart and I hopped on it?" And then she said, and apparently fell off the grocery cart and skinned up his knee. And she said, "Well, I like to believe that everything in life happens for a purpose. And the purpose, the reason that this happened to you is you're an idiot." So, yeah, but I can learn something from it.
There you go.
So
I think it's really important at this point, and we've got it down as number 8, that we take baby steps. Remind me about What About Bob?
you remember that? In What About Bob? He's got a book from the psychiatrist called Baby Steps. And so we're kind of laughing about it, but at the same time, it's probably a good principle. We're not shooting for perfect here. We're not trying to accomplish everything, but can you manage some of your stress, control your mood, control yourself a little bit better? So take some small steps, break things down a little bit and take small steps. Mm-hmm. And don't forget to take some time and reflect on the progress that you've made. Get a different perspective here.
Right. So that leads into number 9, which is take a step back when a task or a situation overwhelms you.
Is this going to be a disaster in 1,000,000 years or even next year? Because sometimes we're blowing up over the smallest things, and maybe we should take a step back and just get a little perspective on it. Calm down, relax a little bit. Try some breathing techniques. Try that meditation thing we were talking about earlier. All of that is a way to, for the price of 25 cents over a coupon, I did $100 in emotional damage yelling at a family member. Let's get some perspective here.
How about if you do experience a disappointment, trying to do something that you really enjoy right after that experience?
Yeah, amazing that would work, but it does. It pulls you out of that. Instead of digging down deeper, you're able to say, like, that was then, and this is now, and I'm going to get a new perspective, and I'm going to distract myself with something positive. You may not think you want to do it. You might not feel like starting it, but if you can get going, that positive mood will come over time.
Number 11, this is relating to perspective again, is to view any setbacks you have as short-lived.
If you find yourself plunging into negativity after a disappointment, remind yourself that things will get better. Whatever the situation, you can take proactive steps to deal with the stress and the underlying issues. And even if you're faced with something that you have to deal with for a lifetime, like a health problem, there are always some ways you can improve it or think positively about it. Like, I will get through this. I still have good people around me. I still have talents and gifts. So you can grow stronger, you can heal, and you can find better ways to cope.
Number 12, I think, is really important, and that is to fight isolation.
Yeah, there's a tendency when I'm under stress to avoid answering the phone, avoid my friends, be alone, avoid everything and isolate. But we want to resist that urge. A couple do's and don'ts on our list. So get around people and avoid isolation. If you don't feel like you have people you can turn to, go out and find them. Find a club or a class or some support group or AA, or do some volunteering. Find a way to reach out and make a connection with other people.
So we want to encourage you, our listeners and viewers, to stay strong and positive, because stress is really inevitable. We can't avoid it. Then managing stress better becomes our only option.
Right. Both mental health and substance abuse disorders increase stress levels, and managing your stress also means managing your mental health symptoms and certainly managing your substance use disorder.
And look for positive ways to cope with the difficulties of everyday life, those things that happen to you every day.
Yeah, and Tim, resist the urge to eliminate all stress from your life, because it's not going to happen. So again, like you said, we're going to try to manage it better.
Right.
Gaylen, take us out.
Thank you, Dr. Hal, and thanks everyone for listening to today's podcast. Also, we invite you to check out resources on the web at journeytorecovery.com, where you can download other materials that help you develop skills to identify emotional problems, reduce symptoms, and prevent relapse at journeytorecovery.com. We've been visiting with author, speaker, and clinical psychologist Dr. Hal Baumchen. I'm Gaylen Morse. Thanks for listening to today's program. See you next time on Journey to Recovery. Remember, recovery is a journey. Enjoy the ride.